Welcome back to Old School Sports and our Out of the Park Baseball 26 series, Rescue the Rockies. And we are back in the saddle. Thanks for the good wishes from viewers on my recent travel for work. It's Friday evening as I'm working on this. Very tired after a few days of work being on the road. Did have one fun part of the trip, though. Had some business meetings in Chicago yesterday, and there happened to be an event at the Wrigley Rooftops. And so I was at the Wrigley Rooftops for meetings yesterday afternoon on Thursday. And then it's been 25 years since I was at Wrigley Field for a Cubs game. I guess I technically was not in Wrigley Field last night, but it was a cool experience to be up on those rooftops. Ours was in right field. I can't claim that it was the best view of a baseball game that I've ever had, but it was still a fun experience. And the Cubs won against the Pirates 3-2 last night. Pete Crow Armstrong with the big blast, a 2-run home run in the fourth inning for the Cubs. When I knew I was going to be going there for a Pittsburgh game, I was hoping Paul Skeens might be on the mound for the Pirates. Unfortunately, just missed him by a day as he went this afternoon and pitched very well for the Pirates against the Cubs here on Friday. But back to fictional baseball from real baseball and real life. Our Rockies at 47-51 have had a disappointing year after playoff appearances that were pretty surprising in both 2026 and 2027. As we sit at the All-Star break, 6.5 games behind the Giants in the National League West, and we are 4.5 games out of a wild card spot. The team is playing a bit better of late, had a winning record in June, and we have a winning record here in July after that 12-16 record in May really dug us a little bit of a hole that we've had a difficult time digging out of in our battle to get back to 500. As we sit here 98 games into the season, tied for 6th in the National League in runs scored, but you can see we're doing pretty well in a lot of offensive categories. Runs allowed, middle of the packish, 9th in runs allowed. Starters ERA is 4th, bullpen ERA is 7th. The defense this year is decidedly mediocre, which is a bit surprising how strong we are up the middle. But as we sit here, and we've talked about this in previous episodes and also in a number of comments to recent episodes with viewers, it's a difficult situation as to what we should do. Some viewers think we should definitely buy. Some viewers think we should definitely sell. A lot of viewers are more like me and in the middle, and it's probably going to be circumstantial depending on what kind of value emerges over these next couple of weeks. Right now, I really don't see any potential impact players that are realistically attainable for us. We've got a lot less financial flexibility this year than we have in previous seasons, so the opportunity to perhaps add somebody significant into the mix may not be there, unfortunately. And as we talked about in our last episode, very tepid response in the trade market to a few players that we'd be willing to trade away. So I'm going to continue to explore some opportunities in the trade market, both players who are being shopped and just other players who I think could help the team over these next couple of weeks. But I think it is very conceivable that we don't end up doing much because buying would be too expensive, and selling, we're just going to get our faces ripped off unless something changes over these next couple of weeks. And we've simmed ahead a couple of days, gotten our first and second round picks signed, so only Leroy Sanchez is unsigned at this point, a 10th round pick that we don't really have the money to make an offer to. since we're over budget. So unlikely that we will get Mr. Sanchez on board, unfortunately. But we did get our first round pick, Ryan Stone, and our second round pick, James Embry, both signed over the last couple of days. They are among 5 players in the draft class that are playing in the draft league for us right now. We're going to let them continue to get some experience there, and then when they come back to us in the not too distant future, would expect that most of those guys will get a crack at moving up to Class A, where we've got a bit of a bloated roster right now. Probably we'll use that as a reason when those guys come back to promote some people to high A ball as well. And before we get going with our first series coming out of the All-Star break at the Texas Rangers, I just wanted to point out something interesting that I came up with in response to the last episode. Why Me 943 was hypothesizing about why our base running could be so bad, and I don't necessarily have a great explanation for that. But you can see we are second in the National League in stolen bases. And when I did a little bit digging as far as our team batting statistics, saw a stat that really blew me away. We've got 110 stolen bases this year, and we've only been caught 14 times. I would have to imagine that that is for any team that stole more than 15 or 20 bases in a season, the highest success rate on the base paths in Major League history. I mean, that's a number that the greatest base stealers in history would love to have for a single season. And the fact that our whole team has done that over the better part of a season at this point is pretty shocking statistics. So we'll see if we can continue to be very efficient, at least in terms of our base stealing, even though at this point in the season, the statistics say that overall we're not a particularly effective base running team. And the good news is that we won 2 out of 3 coming out of the All-Star break on the road against the Rangers. The bad news, I guess, even though we won 2 out of 3 coming out of the All-Star break, and we happen to have 5 All-Stars this year, fan interest has already regressed another point since this episode started to just 53 points. So that certainly remains a big challenge for us. But as we head into the final week before the trade deadline, close the gap on the Giants to 5.5 games, still third place in the division, and 4 games out of those final 2 wild card spots in the National League here in 2028. And our loyal viewers will remember that we sent down Charlie Condon, who was at one point one of the real blue chip prospects in our organization. Sent him down to AAA a couple of weeks ago. He had been not performing very well, and unfortunately, as we saw last episode, doesn't seem to have a lot of trade value at this point. If we could use him to get someone interesting, whether it's someone who could help us now or a prospect for the future, I certainly am amenable to doing it. But it seems like the trade market for him is very tepid right now. So if we do end up keeping him around, hope is maybe when we get to the winter meetings next year, there will be a little more interest in him. While he's been down, though, we brought up the former minor league free agent signing, Toshimi Masuda. We know he's going to strike out a ton. We know he's going to struggle to make contact, but we do think he can hit some crazy amount of home runs for us. And in this month of July, since he's come up and taken over as our left fielder against right-handed pitching, he's been pretty productive. 8 hits in 28 at-bats, but 4 of those 8 hits are home runs, 10 ribbies overall, has struck out 12 times, 286 batting average, and an identical 286 on-base percentage, given that he's got no walks. But the OPS still over 1,000, thanks to the 5 extra base hits and he's put up a 174 WRC plus. So definitely has been a more productive player for us offensively than what we were getting from Mr. Condon. And I did misspeak about one thing there. Although Masuda is listed as a left fielder, we've actually been playing him as a DH against left-handed pitching. And we swept 2 games in Los Angeles against the Angels to push our winning streak to 4 games. We've got now a 4-game homestand against the Cubs before we head back out into the road against San Francisco. And we're only 1 game below 500 at this point, so it's not inconceivable that we could have a winning record by the end of July if we do really well in these last 5 games of the month against the Cubbies and the Giants. And as we approach the trade deadline, really not any material differences in terms of the players that are available on the trade block right now. Don't necessarily see a true impact player among the hitters who are available. Absolutely some big-time relievers and starters who could help us, but the prices for those guys are relatively exorbitant at this point, and given that even with our recent success, I have a hard time imagining we are truly a contender to win it all this year. I think it's increasingly likely that we may just hold tight and try to sneak back into the playoffs with the team that we basically started with in April. And we've made it to trade deadline day. Unfortunately, we only split the 4 games at home with the Cubs. Lost a couple of pitchers' duels, 3-1 and 2-1 on Thursday and Friday, and then 7-4 and 14-6 victories at home in the type of score lines you'd more expect to see in Colorado. So not going to have a winning record by the end of the month, but if we do win on the road today against San Francisco, we will have pulled ourselves to 500 at 54 and 54, 2/3 of the way through this 2028 season. And as we sit here on trade deadline day, regardless of what happens against San Francisco today, with a 14-10 record thus far in July, we're going to have our best month of the season. We've improved to 4th in the National League in runs scored, still 9th in runs allowed. Don't think there's anything obvious or practical for us to do. We are 2 games below Pythagorean expectations, 55 and 52 if everything was working out the way the math says it should, but 6.5 behind in the division, only 1.5 out of that final wild card spot though. As we sit here on July 31st, Gus Nieves, who's been leading the league in both homers and ribbies a good chunk of this season after we made him a big-time international free agent signing last offseason, is now leading the league in OPS and up to 2nd in the National League batting race as he potentially tries to not just win a Rookie of the Year award, but maybe add in a Triple Crown or a MVP or both to his resume. Chandler Simpson, not surprisingly, with 59 steals, continues to lead the National League in that category. And ultimately, we were neither buyers nor sellers at the trade deadline this year. Could not find anything that made sense. So it is what it is. We did win against San Francisco, so we pulled back to 500 as we head into the final third of the season. A few interesting pieces of news. Sergio Alvarado, a guy that we thought about seriously as a international amateur free agent a year and a half ago, just completed an outstanding season for the Pirates in the Rookie League, 5-1 record with a 1.45 ERA and 13.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. Still a little concerned about how some of those personality traits will end up impacting his development, but had a much better second season as a professional than he did in his first season, and just won the top pitcher award in the DSL. We go in some awards also, though. Ezekiel Tovar, our shortstop, our all-world shortstop at this point, who's on his way to a third straight outstanding season, was just named the National League Batter of the Month with 9 homers, 24 ribbies, and a .326 batting average. And Gus Nieves, 305 average with 7 homers and 15 ribbies, as he once again wins the National League Rookie of the Month. Take a look at the team schedule. Lots of games against divisional rivals at the start of the month. Finish off the series against San Francisco, and then 4 straight against the Padres. After that, we've got 3 at the Diamondbacks in the middle of the month, before finishing up at home against the Padres at the end of August. After the 15-10 record that we had in the month of July, the hope is that we can put up a similar record here in August and close the gap in the division to less than 5.5 games behind the Giants, and close the gap between us and that final wild card spot to less than a game and a half, and perhaps even be in that final wild card spot by the time we get to the end of August and September roster expansion. Have not had a ton of injuries this year. Knocking on wood to avoid jinxing myself, but the team has been pretty healthy thus far. Although we're only 54-54, we've been better, or we look better on paper than we have been in real life. Hopefully that might transpire over these next 2 months, and when all is said and done with this 2028 season, maybe we'll still be able to sneak back into the playoffs for a third straight year. And although the first week of August did not go incredibly well, we've now won 5 games in a row, including a 4-game sweep at home against St. Louis. So as we sit here on August 14th, we're definitely making things interesting. Close the gap on the Giants in the division to just 3.5 games at this point. Still a game and a half out of that final wild card spot. So can't say that we are a favorite to make the postseason at this point, but still extremely competitive. Nieves still leading the league in homers, ribbies, and OPS. Simpson still leading the league in steals. And Ezekiel Tovar is now leading the league in batter WAR. Mentioned he's having a third straight really big season for us. Had a 5.6 WAR 2 years ago, a 6 WAR last season. And if he remains healthy over these final 6 or 7 weeks of the season, could definitely see him putting up a 6.5, maybe even a 7 WAR season if he gets really hot. And a rough day for us here, unfortunately. We lost to Arizona on the road 7-3 to a divisional rival. And our perennial Gold Glove winning center fielder, Brenton Doyle, dealing with a herniated disc in his back. He's going to be out for 5 weeks, so that's going to definitely leave a hole both defensively and offensively in our lineup, although has not been as good offensively this year as he was a year ago. Still has 14 home runs, 13 steals, and has been a 1.6 WAR player overall, largely driven by his defense. Austin Wells also banged up. He has not been nearly as productive this year offensively as he was a year ago. Has the same 14 home runs that Doyle has, but a .213 batting average a year after he put up a 130 WRC plus, just to 83 this year for Wells, and he's been slightly below replacement level. Hopefully that leg injury is nothing too serious. And to replace Mr. Doyle on the roster, brought up Dylan Carlson, had him in AAA for us. He was a minor league free agent signing for us at the end of February. Wasn't honestly all that productive in AAA, but he was also pretty unhappy that he was in AAA. Still a respectable defensive player, kind of a borderline major league hitter at this point, according to his ratings, although he did have a 117 WRC plus last year. With him on board, Carlson will take over as our center fielder against left-handed pitching. Against right-handed pitching, we're going to pivot Chandler Simpson into center. Austin Wells is going to move from first base to left field. Vinny Pasquantino is going to go into a DH role. And Dial Amador, who's been hitting better of late, will become an everyday player for us at first base. He had previously been playing primarily against left-handed pitching. Clearly, if Wells' injury ends up being something serious, we'll have to make another move in the very near future. And a little bit of good news, Austin Wells, not a significant injury, calf strain. He should be 100%. We also won the second game of the series against Arizona, so the rubber game is coming up. Interestingly, we also need to think about what we're going to do with Mr. Ashby, who is finally healthy. When we think about our pitching, definitely has gotten better over the last month or so. You can see all the starters with ERAs between the high 2s and the low 4s. The only real problem in the bullpen is Jamie Arnold, former 4th overall pick, who just clearly has not worked out. You can see at this point we view him as kind of a 35 overall, 35 potential kind of guy. So he was a flyer on a guy with some negative personality traits. And I think even more than the negative personality traits impacting him development, I think he was also just a guy that our scout and we were probably too high on. It doesn't look like Arnold is ultimately going to be anything special, so we could send him down, but given that we've got a $13 million option on Ashby for next year, and very unlikely to bring him back at that price, might just put him on a rehab assignment in AAA, because he's got an ERA at the major league level this year that is even worse than what we've gotten from our former top pick. So neither Ashby nor Arnold has impressed us as a lefty this year. And we did win the final game of the series against Arizona, so took 2 out of 3 after losing the first game. The Major League Draft League is now done, so several of our top draftees are now getting an opportunity to compete in Class A ball. I guess there's an outside chance maybe someone even gets promoted to High A in early September to play a few games up there. Dylan Carlson, who has literally been with us for days at this point, is already complaining about his role on the team. He actually has started 2 of the 3 games since we brought him up, so a bit confusing what he's complaining about. In his defense, he has been productive, 3 hits, including 2 doubles, 2 runs scored and a ribby in those first 2 games, but kind of interesting that he's already complaining about his role. And we also ended up taking 2 out of 3 at Milwaukee, so heading into the final week and a half of this month of August, the record stands at 65-60. We've passed the Giants, who have been plunging of late. They've now lost 7 in a row, moved up to second place, half a game behind the Dodgers. And if the season were to end today, we would be in that final wild card spot. So probably the best case potential scenario for us, where we didn't trade anybody away, didn't give up any resources to try to bring somebody on board, but we still may be able to ultimately sneak this team back into the playoffs. And another winning week in the books, although we did it the hard way. Lost the first 2 at Atlanta before salvaging games 3 and 4 to split with them, and then lost the first game back at home against Houston before winning the final 2 of that series. So a 4-3 week 3 games now at home against San Diego before we get to roster expansion. 1 game behind the Dodgers in the division, and we've actually moved up to the second wild card spot. We are a game up on the Cubs now and a game and a half up on the Reds of being out of the playoffs entirely. So definitely been playing our best baseball over the last 5 or 6 weeks, which is good to see because we are definitely in the dog days of summer, and it's crunch time to try to guide these Rockies back into the playoffs. And we did take 2 out of 3 against the Padres to finish off the month. So as we sit here on September 1st, 2 games behind the Dodgers, who just never lose, half a game up on the Reds for the final wild card spot, and a game up on the Cubs to miss the playoffs entirely. So still going to be quite a significant battle for us, but given where we were not that long ago, to be 71-64 and in a position to certainly compete for a wild card spot and maybe shock the Dodgers and win a second consecutive division title is a good place to be. Nieves still on track to lead the National League in both homers and ribbies as a rookie. He has dipped to second in the league in OPS behind Juan Soto. Ezequiel Tovar hasn't been as hot as late, and unfortunately, you can see injured diagnosis pending. That could be very significant for us. He's tied for second in the National League with a 5.7 WAR at this point. And Chandler Simpson, not surprisingly, continues to run away with the league lead in steals, almost double of Victor Robles, and well more than double what the aforementioned Pete Crow Armstrong has done this year for the Cubs. And after his rehab assignment in AAA, Aaron Ashby is one of our 4 call-ups. He did not allow a run over 5 innings pitched while striking out 9 in AAA. So he's going to give us another arm out of the bullpen, long reliever, and we'll occasionally use him as a lefty specialist. Brought up 3 position players, but I don't expect any of them to have a big impact. Leonardo Bernal, who we picked up in that trade with St. Louis about a year ago, started much of the year for us in AAA, was reasonably proficient there, gives us another glove behind the plate if we need it, and another switch hitter off the bench. Also brought up Andy Perez, 24-year-old, who was a IAFA signing back in 2021 for the Rockies. He was the shortstop in AAA this year, did hit 296, but 296 with 22 doubles, 12 homers, and 13 steals is still only a 91 WRC plus in the Pacific Coast League. But he does give us another relatively versatile infield glove and left-handed bat off the bench. Possible that he or others may need to play a more prominent role if that injury to Tovar ends up serious. And then we also brought Charlie Condon back, still listed as the number 87 prospect in baseball, although as we've talked about, we're not particularly optimistic about him at this point. He did hit 301 with 8 homers and 136 at-bats after we sent him down, so looks like doesn't really have anything to prove in AAA. Do question exactly what he's going to do as a major leaguer. Don't even know that we're going to find regular playing time for him over this last month of the season in the majors. But 25 years old, it's time for Mr. Condon to sink or swim at the major league level. As we talked about earlier in the episode, very conceivable that we could look to move on from him around the winter meetings if there's perhaps a little more value for a guy who still, in theory, is a top 100 prospect. Clearly, Ezequiel Tovar's health and effectiveness down the stretch, if he is healthy, are going to be big factors in how we do and whether we do ultimately sneak this team back into the playoffs. But we've kind of got the schedule we need. We're playing a lot of teams that we're competing with for the wild card spot. Most notably, we've got the Braves on the schedule, the Cubs on the schedule, and then a lot of important divisional rivals. We're going to be on the road in Los Angeles, and then we've got a home series against the Dodgers, also have a home series against the Giants, and an away series against the Giants this month. And we're going to finish off with 3 games against the Diamondbacks at the end of the month into October 1st. So if we are able to put up another winning month, feel pretty good about our chances. We have had our 3 best months of the season in a row now. Just barely over 500 in June, 15-10 in July, and 17-10 in August. Our overall record still 3 behind Pythagorean expectations, 4th in the National League in runs scored, and we have improved to 6th in the National League in runs allowed. Looks like our base running is also normalizing a bit as we're up to 5th in base running and continue to be 2nd in the National League in stolen bases. Walks remain an issue for us both offensively and when we're on the mound. 14th in the league in walks that we've picked up this year, and 13th in the league in the number of walks that we've allowed by our pitching staff. But the starters' ERA of 3.71 is now 3rd in the National League. So when all is said and done, seems like these Rockies are playing closer to the way that we hoped they would over these last 2.5 months. And the goal is to keep that momentum going here in September and guide these teams back to the playoffs. And unfortunately, the news on Tovar was about as bad as it could be. Strained PCL, going to be out for 6 weeks. So unless we make a pretty decent run in the playoffs, his season is over. I talked not that long ago about knocking on wood and hopefully having no injuries, and clearly jinxed these Rockies. So Tovar with another fine season, 295 average, 27 homers and 85 ribbies, had 41 doubles, ultimately a OPS of over 900, 132 WRC plus, and a 5.7 WAR. Taking a look at his fielding statistics, above average defensively in terms of his zone rating and defensive efficiency at shortstop. He won that Gold Glove Award back in real life in 2024. Hasn't won one since for us, but still is a excellent fielder and a excellent hitter and a real good influence in the clubhouse. So we've got enough infielders with Bo Bichette, the young guys that we've had on this team for the past few years, namely the likes of Adile Amador, Cole Carrig, and Jared Cerna, and then last season's off-season acquisition, Marcelo Meyer, who we picked up in that trade with Boston, also in the mix. So I think we can cobble things together in the infield without Mr. Tovar, but certainly ultimately losing out on his glove and losing out on his bat down the stretch is definitely going to be a big hole for us to fill. You look at the ratings, and he is by far the most highly regarded player in terms of his overall rating on our team, even higher than Gus Nieves at this point. And with the injury to Tovar, we brought up another pitcher, Cam Schlittler, who was only with us for 1 game earlier this year. 27-year-old, doesn't look like he's ultimately going to have a huge impact with us, but brought another arm up. As far as the lineup, Dylan Carlson's going to get his opportunity to play every day, as he was whining about within days of finally getting promoted. He'll play left field for us against right-handed pitching, and then we're going to shift around a lot of other things in the infield. Marcelo Meyer moves to shortstop. Adile Amador moves to second base. Austin Wells goes back to first, and Vinny, well, he'll still be our designated hitter. And then against left-handed pitching, Amador pivots to shortstop, and we bring Mr. Condon back into the lineup against left-handed pitching at least, and he will be our first baseman, so he will get some degree of at-bats. Definitely not an optimal situation for us with 2 of our best and most important defensive players out for the better part of the rest of this month in Doyle and likely the rest of the regular season in Tovar. We'll see if we can piece things together, both defensively and offensively, and guide this team back into the playoffs despite those pretty significant injuries. And despite the injuries, we swept the Braves at home, so 3 on the road at the Dodgers and 3 on the road at the Cubs this week. Pretty important series for us. We're a game behind the Dodgers in the division, and we're a game and a half up on the Reds for the final wild card spot, and 3 games up on the Cubs overall in that wild card race. So important games coming up this week on the road. Would love to obviously have a winning record, but honestly, if we can go 3-3 combined against the Dodgers and the Cubs, that's probably what we're supposed to be doing on a road trip against 2 teams that we're competing with for a playoff spot. And unfortunately, we're not doing what we need to do. The best we're going to be on that road trip is 2-4. We lost 2 out of 3 in Los Angeles, and we've lost the first 2 in Chicago. So as we sit here on September 10th, we've dropped 3 games behind the Dodgers in the race for the NL West. And we're now in a flat-footed tie with the Cubs for the final wild card spot in the National League. Only half a game up on the Phillies. To make matters worse, pretty significant injury. Chandler Simpson, strained MCL, going to be out for 5 weeks, so his season is over. Going to finish with a .285 average, 79 homers, or 79 steals. I wish he had 79 homers, but 79 steals, and ridiculously only caught stealing 3 times this year. Not a ton of extra base hits, only 9 doubles, although he did also have 7 triples. Ultimately a 75 WRC plus on the season for Simpson. So the batting average dipped, the on-base percentage, the OPS all dipped. Still was a 2.1 WAR player, and as we talked about, he has been playing some center field for us with the injury to Mr. Doyle. So the defense and the offense continue to take some blows with another significant injury to a player from our starting lineup. And to replace Mr. Simpson, we brought up Benny Montgomery, minor league center fielder, just turned 26 years old. Only hit .262 for us as a part-time player in AAA Albuquerque this year. Not really a big-time prospect. Hasn't developed the way that we hoped, but is a respectable defensive player. Not going to be starting for us, but will give us an option for some better defense in the outfield going forward. We're actually going to put Charlie Condon in as a first baseman against right-handed pitching, pivot Austin Wells to left field, and Dylan Carlson is now going to be our everyday center fielder after not even being on the roster just several weeks ago. So how the turntables have turned against us, but the injury situation with Tovar, Doyle, and Simpson all on the IL as we head into the final weeks of the season is certainly, as I often say, not optimal. And we did unfortunately get swept by the Cubs, so that road trip, I guess, could have technically gone worse. We could have been 0-6 rather than 1-5, but against teams that we were battling for a playoff spot with, a bad time for the worst week we've had in quite some time. Looking at this week, home against the Phillies and then home against the Dodgers. Those games are critically important. 4 behind the Dodgers now, and we're half a game out of that final wild card spot at this point and only half a game ahead of the Phillies. So some more very important action against the teams that we are competing with for a division title and a wild card spot. Unfortunately, we lost 2 out of 3 at home to the Phillies, so it does feel like after playing really well in July and August, I hate to blame the injuries, but they are definitely some pretty significant players that we're missing, and we're playing the worst baseball we've played in quite some time at this point. Heading into this pivotal series against the Dodgers, we've dropped to 5.5 behind them in the division. Now still half a game out of the wild card spot, tied with the Cubs at this point, who have lost 3 in a row. The Phillies, by virtue of having taken that series against us, have moved ahead of us in the race for the final wild card spot. Looks like it will likely come down to us, the Cubs, and the Phillies, although the Giants are still lurking 3.5 back, and the Braves are 5 back for that final wild card slot. Certainly feel like at home we've got to get 2 out of 3 against the Dodgers. I don't think the division is realistic at this point, but got to start winning some series if we're going to hope to get back to the playoffs as a wild card. And we split the first 2 games with the Dodgers, so we do have a chance at taking the series. And Brenton Doyle ready to come back, given how important he is defensively. We're just going to put him right back into the major league lineup. We'll see what he can do. Definitely will help us with the glove out in center field. Who knows how he's going to hit. And unfortunately, we dropped the series to the Dodgers, so 4 consecutive series that we've lost, only 3 wins overall in those 4 series, so it's been a very rough stretch. At San Francisco and at Cincinnati this upcoming week in the final road trip of the season. 77-73 record given the latest skid, 6.5 behind the Dodgers in the division, only 2 up on the Giants at this point. Dodgers' magic number is down to 7, and we've fallen all the way to 2.5 behind the Phillies for that final wild card spot. So definitely time for a big week from our Rockies if we're going to get this team back into the playoffs. We're feeling pretty good at the start of the month, but things have certainly turned against us recently. And we did get a win against the Giants, so that was good to see. Unfortunately, perhaps not surprisingly, Brenton Doyle got some hamstring soreness, moderate impact on running, minimal impact on his hitting. I think at this point we've just got to hope it doesn't become something more serious. We've got 11 games left this season. Losing him for another 3 is probably just something we can't risk at this point, given that the options behind him in the outfield, in center field, particularly with Simpson on the IL, just aren't that attractive after that good start. Not shockingly, Dylan Carlson not playing particularly well of late, and we'll hope that we can avoid that hammy soreness turning into something more serious, but I know that's a risky game to play. And fortunately, that hamstring injury didn't turn into anything more serious. Fortunately, we also won both series on the road, taking 2 out of 3 against the Giants and then 2 out of 3 against the Reds the hard way. So finally winning some games with a 4-2 week. Just 6 left this season. Fortunately, they're all at home. 6 against the Giants and then 6 against the Diamondbacks. With that 4-2 week, 7.5 behind in the division, so the Dodgers have clinched. Still tied with the Cubs, 2 games out of the final wild card spot. The Reds and the Phillies in those final 2 wild card spots at this point. The Giants and the Diamondbacks have both been eliminated at 81-75. We're 1 win away from clinching a winning record. Realistically, we probably need to win at least 5 out of these 6 games to guide the team into the playoffs. We'll see what we can do. As far as the individual awards, our individual leaderboard items, Simpson clearly going to lead the league in stolen bases, although his season is over. Tovar still 3rd in the league in batter war at this point, although his season is over, and I think it's likely he'll get past. Gus Nieves almost certainly will lead the league in homers, almost certainly will lead the league in ribbies, almost certainly will lead the league in OPS. And he's also hitting over 300, 3rd in the league in the batting race, but I think it would be pretty difficult to make up 14 points on Jackson Merrill in this final week of the season. But we'll see what we can do. As I said, I think we've got to be almost perfect at this point given that we're 2 games out of the wild card spot with 6 to go. But we'll hope that things get more difficult for the Cardinals, the Reds, the Phillies, and the Cubs, and we're able to do well against 2 divisional rivals that we know very well, who really don't have anything to play for now except for perhaps ruining our season. And we're at least going to make things interesting. We swept the Giants at home, so those 3 wins in a row, very big. Half a game out of that final wild card spot at this point. We've won 5 in a row. If we can run that streak to 8 in a row, I think we'll definitely be in the playoffs, although we're still on the outside looking in right now. Only a game behind the Reds and only half a game behind the Phillies, though. So the final games of the season against the division rival Diamondbacks are going to be critically important to find out whether these Rockies can sneak back into the postseason. And we'll find out with you whether or not that's going to be the case. Play today against the Diamondbacks, and we get another win, 7-5. So that's a big one for us. 5 runs in the 3rd inning. Amador with a run-scoring double, and then Austin Wells with a grand slam. 7-5 victory. Bobby Miller, who was having a pretty rough year, has been pitching better of late. He's going to finish with an 8-10 record and a 3.72 earned run average on the season. But a big W here to run our winning streak to 6. And we are now tied for the final 2 wild card spots with the Reds, the Phillies lurking just 1 game behind us. The Cubs have now been eliminated, so our magic number is down to 2. Said I thought we needed to probably win 5 out of 6 to get this team to the playoffs. And at this point, we only need to go 1-1 in these last 2 games to get to 5 out of 6. And as I wait patiently to move forward to the next day, because it's the end of the month, it's taking me a bit longer to find out what actually happened here against the Diamondbacks. And we do get another W, so that is positive. Nieves, not only the Rookie of the Month, but also the Player of the Month. 376 average with 11 homers and 30 ribbies as he continues his monster season. And that 5th win, with obviously a loss by, I believe, the Phillies, means that we have clinched a playoff spot. So definitely did it the hard way. No prospect for us to have a home wild card series. We'll be playing against the Cardinals if we stay here in the 2nd wild card spot. Otherwise, it looks like we'll be playing against the Brewers or the Dodgers, depending on how their final game of the season goes. Take a look at who's set up to be pitching for us today. It's the number 2 starter, Pablo Lopez. Since we're not really playing for anything else, I think I may let one of these long relievers pitch for us and ensure that we're going to have our number 2 starter available for the playoffs, although his performance this year was not as strong as some of the other guys in the rotation. And we're going to let Jamie Arnold start his first game of his major league career for us here in game 162. 5.49 ERA with 12 home runs allowed in 39 1/3 innings. So the former 4th overall pick definitely looking like a bust. But he has not pitched any time recently, so he's fully rested. And as we talked about, this game doesn't really mean anything to us. Not going to worry about trying to mastermind what the matchups might be with so many different directions it could go. basically want to ensure that we've got all of our starting pitchers rested and as healthy as we can hope they will be when the wild card series is going to be beginning in just a couple days. So we'll find out what Arnold did here on the final day of the season on the mound. Can we run the winning streak to 8 straight games? No, we cannot. Not surprisingly, we got crushed 10-6 with Arnold on the mound. As you saw there, Nieves, the first time we've had anyone lead the league in home runs. Diamondbacks with 1 in the first, 2 in the third, and then 4 in the fifth, where they really broke things open on us. Arnold, 4 1/3 innings pitched, 3 hits, 1 walk, 5 runs, 3 of them earned. Did strike out 4, but he gave up 2 home runs. Definitely Aaron Ashby, Jaden Hill, and Wellington Herrera finished things up for us. So when all was said and done here in 2028, 86-76 record, did get into the playoffs for a 3rd consecutive season. Looks like the Reds and the Phillies ended up in a flat-footed tie for that final wild card spot. Not sure who's going to win the tiebreaker there, but it'll be very easy for me to find out if I look at the playoff tree. And it looks like the Reds are the ones who snuck in with that final seed. We will be facing off against the Cardinals in a wild card series here in 2028. Before we finish things up, take a look at the team statistics. Ended up going 15-11 in September. There was that real rough stretch in the middle of the month that certainly let the Dodgers clinch the division and had us very concerned about making the playoffs. But winning 7 of our last 8, the 7 final games of the month of September, was just enough to push us into the playoffs. Ended up 2nd in the National League in runs scored, and you can see we were top 3 in almost every offensive category. So the offense has really rounded into shape of late, and tied for 6th in runs allowed, pitching half of our games in Colorado. I'm certainly not going to complain about that type of performance. So we are back in the saddle here in OOTP 26 baseball with the Rockies. And our Rockies have made a 3rd consecutive playoff appearance here in 2028. Definitely was not confident that that would be happening, but when all was said and done, they made it. Nieves, as we know, led the league in home runs, ended up hitting 51, led the league with 137 ribbies, led the league in OPS, and ended up batting .305, 2nd in the batting race behind Jackson Merrill. So Nieves, who we signed to that big 7-year, $217 million deal this past offseason, certainly delivered everything we could have hoped. His first year as a major leaguer put up a 5.6 WAR for us with a 163 WRC plus, which was also the best in the National League this past season. And we'll find out how Mr. Nieves does in his playoff debut in the major leagues, and the rest of our Rockies do in the 2028 postseason in our next episode. Until then, thanks so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.